assets. It is going to be assets all 2023. If you are not trying to be an asset, you're not trying to buy me an asset, you're not trying to contribute to my assets, then goodbye. Boy, bye. Sorry, y'all. It was a lot of energy. But no, that goes for anybody. Look, long story short, babes, we need to boss up all 2023, okay? I've told you guys that assets add value, liabilities take away value. So let me just kind of read you the definitions of what an asset is and what a liability is so you guys can understand. Oftentimes I refer to myself as an asset. Why? Because I know anywhere I go, I'm going to add value. That's why I consider myself an asset, never a liability, baby. But let me go ahead and read the definitions for you, babes, who may not be too savvy with business jargon. So these terms are not your everyday terms. And you just might be like, girl, what? So I got you. An asset is a useful or valuable thing, person, or quality, right? Property owned by a person or a company regarded as having value and available to meet debts, commitments, or legacies. So for example, when you hear people say a home is an asset, right? That loan that you get on that home allows that home to be collateral for, in the event that you foreclose or anything like that, that home is an asset. It has value. So if you default on something such as a loan that you promised to pay, then the banks will go ahead and take that home back from you. They will get their value, and hopefully they'll be able to sell that home at what it's worth or over. And oftentimes when they can't do that, you know of a process called liquidation. So liquidation is basically allowing you to, you're liquid. For example, if I'm looking at a business right now, this is a perfect example. Look, that was a Macy's, right? It's no longer there, right? So in the event that that Macy's, let's just say, shut down because they couldn't afford the rent, they were above their ears with debt, and they couldn't pay off that asset, right? So the bank takes the Macy's. I'm using an example. The bank takes this store because they no longer can pay for their business anymore, right? So they no longer can pay the loan, so the bank takes the business. The business, and I'm just putting numbers out here, I don't know the real numbers. Say that Macy's, why does this number look so familiar? Oh, give me 1 second, y'all. Hello? Okay, y'all, so as I stated, a phone call came through. I was, like I told you guys, I'm trying to clear out everything. I'm trying to clean up everything. So my phone call came through, and I literally just was on a phone call for getting rid of things. So that's just what's been happening. But as I was saying before the camera cut, just let's say that the Macy's building, right? So say that this specific asset, at one point it was an asset because it did add value, right? So say that they defaulted on their loan and the bank wants to take this location because they are not paying their bills. So you're not paying your loan, then you're not gonna still like have possession of the property. They take that back, right? Say that they go to sell the Macy's and they can only get $1 million. Okay, y'all, so my 12 Pro Max has died, and now I'm filming off of my other phone that's camera quality is nowhere near the 12 Pro Max, and they're not near my my actual camera's quality. So I'm just going to continue saying what I'm saying. So assume that they sold the property for $1 million. That's all they could get the property for, but the loan was for $1.5 million, right? They bought the property for 1.5 mil, right? So they have $1.5 million, right? So there's only $1 million they get out of it. There's $500,000 remaining that they need to get out of that property in order to come back to what it is that they had loaned out and break even. So that, Macy's, let's say by the time the doors closed, they had $1 million worth of things inside, but by the time they reduced everything 50% off, they could only sell $500,000 worth, right? by them liquidating. They're taking things inside of value that they could sell so that they can come back up to the price in which they needed to come up to for the sale of the property. So this phone is like basically the temperature's too hot for it to. So I can't keep reading y'all the definitions, but just know this. Assets add value. Liabilities are literally taking away value, okay? It's an issue. It's in the way. You know, you're responsible. You're liable. It is a risk. Then you got the liquidation method, which will allow for you to basically come back to making something from goods that you had to either sell or products or whatever. So say they had to liquidate everything inside and they were only able to come up with $500,000 and they sold the building for $1 million. That's 1.5. So they then at that point have now broke even, which to break even is to come back to the number in which you started. So for example, if you invested into an account with $100 and you lost $100, right? But then you got the $100 back. You at least broke even to come back to the point in which you started. You started with 100, you lost it, you got it back. Now you're back to that even point. Now, if you lost $100, if you put in $100, you lost $100, but you're able to somehow make that $100 be $200, then you no longer have broken even. At that point, you have actually profited, which to profit is anything over that specific margin, right? So if you had a price point at which you should be making something and you make over that, that's you collecting a profit. If the house was, if you had a mortgage for $400,000 and you sold your house for $450,000, that profit was $50,000. You've gotten equity out of what it is. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing. But, and I know I'm throwing a lot at y'all, but I was just trying to give an example. And if it didn't make sense, just let me know on another occasion. And I got you even in the comment sections. But I was just trying to explain to you what an asset versus a liability is. And like I said, it just gave me the perfect example because I'm sitting right in front of a building that actually went out of business. And I remember they were trying to sell everything in there. They were trying to liquidate them assets inside to add value probably to the fact that they were going to have to pay that, or they were going to declare bankruptcy at some point. So let me check this phone to see if it's actually recording me properly because the other one came back. Okay, y'all, I know I keep switching back and forth from devices, but they're getting overheated and the temperature is popping up on the screens and is not allowing me to finish recording. But like I was saying, they liquidated. They had to sell all of those goods so that they can get money to help pay for. Either they're going to be able to pay for it, break even, pay what they owe, or they're going to have to declare bankruptcy because they're going to be so in over their head with debt that they won't be able to come back to what they need to come back to. So I wanted to go ahead and put that out there in the atmosphere for you guys to understand where I was coming from when I was speaking on the terms of liquidation and assets and all of that. So yeah, that's what I was trying to say, girlies. But yeah, so you want to be an asset anywhere you go, never a liability. Our financial portfolios, like, I get so tired of people acting like, oh, you know, when you make great financial decisions as an individual and then you someday have a family, you want your kids to be financially set because you made great financial decisions and you were very witty and smart and you understood finances and you understood how to build equity in things and you understood what an asset was versus a liability. And then your child gets into this world and they're financially literate at 3 and 4 years old because you've taught them what you went through to learn. And then you meet people when they get older and say, oh, you're privileged, or oh, you came from being spoiled, or you came from people who knew about finance. It's like, why is that such a bad thing? When you realize that these things were not necessarily taught in your house and you go and you figure them out, even if it was like a crazy figure out, and you're able to teach that to your kids, those principles and practices, or to somebody else or to your nephews or whatever. I don't know why people be acting like that's a bad thing. Like, everybody don't have to get it out the bud. When you start to understand how to build and what to do for success, you teach that to your kids. Your goal should be your kids shouldn't get it out the mud. If you had to get it out the mud and do what you had to do and build up, that's great. But your future kids and your future nephews and nieces don't need to get it out the mud if you set it up to the point where they're understanding financial literacy. A lot of times, I can't speak for every single family, but I know for me, it's like, do I have smart people in my family? Yes. Do I have people who understand financial things? Yes. Was financial literacy a big topic taught in my household? No. Was there times in which it's like, okay, count this change, tell me how much you came up with? Yes. But was the actual sit down, let's talk about financial literacy, let's talk about financial decisions, let's talk about how to use a credit card, let's talk about what not to do, what not to apply for? Those conversations, I never had those. My kids, we will talk about it. They will know about financial literacy as they're growing up. We're buying cash registers, the little play cash registers. If I have a child, baby, you getting one of them. We're going to start counting coins when you little. Because kids are smart. And when you start teaching them, like my nephews, they are so smart. When you start teaching them core principles and practices at a young age, they're going to remember. Doesn't mean you have to shove financial literacy down their throat. But if you explain to them why you're doing certain things, when you're playing grocery shopping with them, like my nephews went to this museum that had this grocery shopping museum. It was like a little mini Publix for the kids, and they had the fake checkouts. But it's that thing of like, if you're playing groceries with the kids growing up and you have to buy your groceries and they say it's $10 and you give them a 20, you want to explain to them, you give me 10 back. Why? Because 20 minus 10 is 10, and that is my change. You want to be able to teach that. And I'm not saying that every kid's going to get that at 3-4 years old, but I'm just saying principles and practices do not start as an adult. They start when you start to basically embed these into kids growing up, and then it becomes innate, you know what I mean, for the next generation, because all they know then is financial literacy, is financial. So stop making it like people who figure things out, create a good life for themselves, and then have a family who teaches them, their child, the same thing. Like, that's whack. Oh, you ain't get it out the mud. I ain't never seen nobody sit here and keep bragging on having their offspring come and keep talking about, but you ain't get it out the mud. You should be wanting to change the narrative. Granted, everybody's households, everybody's situations are different. We grew up different, yes. But if I came from poverty, or this girl came from poverty, and I'm just using examples, your goal should be, okay, let me figure this out. Or if you knew you came from a place in which the financial background wasn't there on financial literacy, it's not saying that you have ignorant people in your family, or you just know it wasn't taught, then make that something that you do. Because it's so whack to me when people sit here and act like people who set their kids up in terms of like financial literacy and understanding and things like that. Like, y'all sit there and try to make that a joke. Like, the joke is on you to be this grown and not have figured out what you need to be doing. Cut it out. Goofy. So, yeah. In the end of the day, you want to be an asset, never a liability. And in 2023, we're going to be working on expanding our financial portfolios through credit building, through managing credit card debt and stuff like that. One thing, people look at debt as a bad thing. Debt is not always a bad thing, because you can actually utilize that to your benefit. That's a whole nother topic. I ain't even gonna talk about it in this video, and I know it sounds like, girl, that don't even make sense. But whenever I make that video, I'm gonna make it make sense for y'all. Like, out of all the parking spaces, you want to park right here, diagonal from me. Weird. But like I said, I'm gonna make it make sense in another video on how you could use debt to your advantage, and how it's not such a bad thing if you know how to use it. So in the end of the day, it's that thing of like, be the better version of yourself, make it make sense. Financial literacy is important in 2023. Build your financial portfolio. Have assets. You know what I mean? I have a few videos that I definitely want to put out when it comes down to financial literacy and bossing up. But we are expanding the financial portfolio, and I'm going to make a video that's actually going to talk about things that I feel could be helpful to build the financial portfolio for the upcoming year. So if you guys I don't know if I'm gonna label it like top 5 or top 10 things you can do in 2023 to build your financial portfolio, and how these assets may start out small, but how they can actually save your life in the future. So make sure you guys tap in and subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful babes in the next video. I've posted 2 videos already. One about manifesting and law of attraction for 2023, and then one about my goals that I've set up for 2023. And then I'm going to post this video that's going to talk about assets versus liabilities. So I'll see you beautiful babes in the next video. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at CurlySaVictoria. And I will see you beautiful babes in my next video. Later.